Not sure if you've noticed, but those advertised prices from the other dealers are just a bunch of blah, blah, blah. At Roberts Motors, the advertised price is the price you pay. And that, my friend, is great news for you. Don't fall for their so-called incentives that will leave you banging your head against the wall. Go with Roberts Motors. Prices you can trust and people you will like. That's the Roberts Motors way. And trust me, it's the way to go.
I just got a new air conditioner. Top of the line.
I bet mine's better. It's so efficient and quiet, I hardly know it's running.
I've got you both trumped. I've got a Linux.
So do I.
Barrett Heating and Cooling carries Linux products to meet any budget. Don't gamble with your energy dollars. Call Barrett Heating and Cooling and start saving today.
Lennox. Innovation never felt so good.
Macias Insurance Agency, providing quality products with extremely competitive prices. As an independent provider, we source multiple companies to offer the best rates possible. Covering auto, home, business, and life insurance, our goal is to provide quality service that meets and exceeds customer expectations. You can rest easy knowing the Macias team is working round the clock to ensure that both you and the most important parts of your life are covered. Our qualified professionals make the insurance process easy so you can live carefree and focus on what matters most. Visit MaciasInsuranceAgency.com today to find out what our team can do for you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're just about ready to get started. If you could turn your phones down, silent them for the duration of tonight's program, that would be very much appreciated. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome each and every one of you here to tonight's festivities. My name is Doug Jenkins, and I am the afternoon and midday host on WBGZ Radio, 1570 AM and 107.1 FM. Glad to be a part of this. I wanted to thank the folks from RiverBender.com for live streaming this as well. Wanted to mention that this is a collaboration between the YWCA and the NCNW as an initiative to increase voter education and promote election awareness during this election season. NCNW and the YWCA are conducting a social media campaign and have participated in various community events allowing folks to check their voter registration and polling place, to register to vote, and to learn more about early voting, voting by mail, and what is on the ballot in Illinois. Again, I want to thank everyone from the media who is here tonight. I see a couple of representatives from our Telegraph newspaper in attendance as well. I'll now introduce the Get Out the Vote Initiative Committee, comprised of the YWCA Executive Director, Dorothy Hummel. YWCA Board Member, Desiree Cappy. Also a YWCA Board Member, Emily Jackson. YWCA Ex Officio Board Member, Gail Donnelly Bader. Stacy Heron, NCNW Board Member, and also a Board Member of NCNW, Tangela Johnson. At this time, it's time to introduce our candidates. These are the two who are vying for the 111th district seat. The incumbent, Representative Amy Elik. and the challenger, Nick Raftopolous. And now a description of tonight's format. We will let the candidates introduce themselves first. They'll have 4 minutes, no more than 4 minutes to introduce themselves. Then there will be a question and answer period. The questions have been prepared by a panel of volunteers. They have not been presented to the candidates in advance. The candidates will have 3 minutes to answer each question, although they do not have to use all of their allotted time. Candidates will take turns going first when responding to the question. There will be additional question and answer from the audience. We'll allow a few minutes for the audience to pose questions at the end of the prepared questions, and the panel will screen questions to ensure that they are fair, relevant, and respectful. We do have a timer for the evening who will be monitoring the response time for the introductions and the questions. The timer will raise up sheets noting 30 seconds remaining, 10 seconds remaining, and then a sign to stop speaking. And where is our timer at tonight? All right, right there at the table. So when you see the indication from there, there's a 30, there's a 10, and there is the red stop sign. Very good, very good. So on your seats, or maybe you were already in your seats when they were handed out, the YWCA and NCNW distributed information on the 4 advisory items that will show up on your ballot. This information will include wording directly from the ballot and neutral information on what a yes or a no vote will mean. I'd like to remind everyone that the election is on Tuesday, November 5th. Early voting currently underway at the Madison County Administration Building in Edwardsville, and it will soon be underway at the Lewis and Clark Community College Scott Bibb Center on 5th Street in Alton and at the Godfrey Village Hall in Godfrey, among other places around Madison County. You can go to MadisonVotes.com to find out where you can cast your vote if maybe you work or travel out of this immediate area. Our panel has additional voting information, including the specifics of early voting, available tonight if you have any questions. And now we proceed to the candidate forum. We'll ask Representative Amy Elik to respond first to this question based on alphabetical order. Challenger Nick Raftopolous will respond afterwards. Question number 1. Given the advisory item on the ballot concerning the potential separation from Cook County to form a new state, what is your position? Oh, I skipped right over that, didn't I? My apologies. Please go in alphabetical order. First, Amy Elik.
Thank you. Okay, good. I think you can probably hear me. Thank you so much. Thank you, Doug. I appreciate that. And WBGZ, RiverBender, the press that's here tonight, Dorothy Hummel from the YWCA, and the ladies from the NCNW, thank you so much for having us tonight and basically designing this for our race. So that's very nice of you to take the time to do that. And thank you, Nick. It's nice to see you. So I am State Representative Amy Elik, and I have been in office for 4 years now, seeking a third 2-year term in November, on November 5th. During my last 4 years, I have been laser focused on really just trying to make Illinois safer and more affordable, a great place to raise a family, to start a business or maintain a business, and a great place to retire. So I've done that by keeping Springfield and holding Springfield accountable on policies that affect safety and affordability in Illinois. For example, I have voted to end the sales tax on groceries, which will be in effect very soon. I voted against giving over $1 billion just this year to illegal immigrants rather than Illinois citizens this year. I have voted across the aisle to make healthcare and prescription drugs more affordable and accessible for people in Illinois. That includes supporting new, unique cancer detection methods to help people get treatment sooner if they're found to have cancer or some other health issue. I have worked on policies, and it's really been a passion of mine to work on policies related to keeping children in schools safe from predators. And that has been both a joy to work on and a very difficult task, and I'm going to continue that in my next term. So I'm very excited to, keep working on issues that matter to the 111th District. One thing, by being the incumbent, I can say that I have tried very hard to keep my office and myself very accessible to the public. We have probably helped some of you in this room on very difficult and unusual issues that have come before you just in your day-to-day life. And something that may be very urgent and important to one person is maybe not the same issue that another one has. So it's really important that we have a very accessible presence in our office and that we have great people that help our constituents and that we are really front and center and communicating with people on how to get services from the state or how to solve a problem related to state government. That's been very rewarding to me, and I think we've made a real impact in people's lives with that. My personal background, I am a certified public accountant, and I have been for 28 years. So my background as a CPA is in accounting, auditing, tax preparation, consulting with small businesses, and it's also been a very rewarding career and one that is similar to being a state rep because you get to help people in sometimes difficult situations with small businesses or tax situations. I'm from here. I'm from Alton and Godfrey, grew up here and live here, and I'm community service oriented. So in my career, I have worked with groups such as the 4-H Club, my kids' school, my church, SCORE, which is an organization that would help small businesses start the process to become, to go into business. And then Rotary Club and things like that that have been very much community service minded. My family, I am married to my husband Don for 27 years now. We have 2 kids. One is out of the house and one is a senior in high school. So I just spent the last couple hours at senior night for my son, and so it's a little bit bittersweet, to be honest with you. In the General Assembly, I have been appointed to leadership in my caucus, and that is, how does that help this community? It helps me make sure that our voices are heard at every single level in Springfield. And I see the sign over there. I've also been appointed to the budget team, and I just really use those opportunities to make sure that our priorities are heard. I serve on committees in the General Assembly that affect people's utility bills, it affects their tax bills, and it affects their kids' education, and it's a job I take very seriously and hope that you feel that I am representing you well. So with that, thank you for having us tonight. I look forward to the questions, but if there's a question that you don't hear tonight that you think of later, you can always contact me at my website, which is amyelik.com. Thanks.
Thank you. And now the challenger. Yep. And now challenger Nick Raftopolous.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Nick Raftopolous. I want to first thank the NCNW and the YWCA for putting this on, for all the people that came out tonight to hear both the candidates. I want to thank Amy Elik for coming as well. So a little bit of background on me. Born and raised in Granite City. Grew up in a working class home. Both my parents were in unions. One of the things that people don't know about me is when I was 10 years old, I was diagnosed with Tourette syndrome and ADHD. And that was tough growing up with that disability. And there were a lot of people that didn't think that I would graduate high school, let alone go to college. And I want to say tonight that if there are any kids out there that are struggling with a disability, or any parents that have kids that are struggling with a disability, I just want to say, don't give up hope, and don't ever let anybody tell you that what you can or cannot do. And I did go to college. I went to SIUE, graduated in 2017 with a double major in political science and history. During my college career, I volunteered to go down to New Orleans to help Hurricane Katrina victims, rebuilding houses down there. And then after I graduated, I was on a few nonprofit boards. The Good Samaritan House, which is a homeless shelter for single moms in Granite City. I was also on the Metro East Humane Society board and the Rebuilding Together board, which is a organization that helps with home repairs for low-income families and also builds wheelchair ramps for disabled veterans. In 2019, I was elected to the Board of Trustees at Southwestern Illinois Community College. And in 2021, I was elected chair of that board. During my tenure on the board, we've expanded our college by adding a manufacturing building and a police academy. And we also have one of the lowest tuition rates for community college colleges in the state of Illinois, which I'm very proud about. So one of the couple of reasons why I decided to run, so I've been a resident in this community my whole life. I want to give back. I want to help people. I also want to advocate for having more trade classes in high schools. I think that's very important to have trade classes in high schools because not everyone wants to go to a four-year university, and I think there should be other options for people. The other thing I think we need is we need to expand on the Workers' Rights Amendment. We need to have maternity and paternity leave, guaranteed vacation time, affordable housing, and a living wage. And I look forward to the questions tonight. Thank you.
All right. Well, now that we have met both candidates, I can go on to the first question. I got a little excited, sorry. All right, question number one, and again, we're going to start with Amy Elik on question number one. Given the advisory item on the ballot concerning the potential separation from Cook County to form a new state, what is your position on this initiative? How do you believe it would impact our community in Madison County? And what steps would you advocate for to address the concerns of residents on this matter?
Thank you. This is a topic that comes up quite frequently from constituents, that they feel that we are not having our voices heard, as compared to Chicagoland folks in the General Assembly, in the legislature, and so it's really a common thing. So the county board has decided to put this as a non-binding advisory vote. I've been very clear with people to make sure that they understand this is advisory only, and the process to go through this is really not something that's likely. So I think it's important to really set and be transparent with people. So I think my opinion is that I've spent the last 4 years and hope to continue advocating and bringing resources to downstate Illinois, specifically here to the 111th, that people here deserve and believe that we can use wisely. And so I would say I'm really just, I'm honestly not sure how I'm going to vote on it, but I think that it's really great that it's on the ballot and people can make their voices heard. I have heard some folks say this is a waste of money to put something like this on the ballot. It's not a waste of money. We're not having a special election to decide this issue. This is a ballot that we can all go and make our voices heard on this ballot. It's not costing anything to put an item on the ballot. There are other advisory questions on the ballot too. So I think that whether you're for it or whether you're against it, absolutely get out and vote and make your voices heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Nick, your response.
So I do agree with Representative Elik that a lot of people in this community feel ignored, and they feel like a lot of the tax dollars go to Cook County. So I do understand the concerns that people have, but I would probably vote no on this advisory vote, just because I think it's another example of the county putting partisan politics ahead of what's right for the people. And I think they put these advisory questions on the ballot to divide us, and I think it takes away from the real important issues that people really care about. And seceding from Cook County is completely unrealistic. It's not going to happen. So I would probably vote no on this advisory question. Thank you.
Thank you. Question number 2. House Bill 4194 was introduced in the House this past session, seeking to extend the Invest in Kids Education Tax Credit Scholarship Program, which ended December 31st of 2023. The Invest in Kids Education Tax Credit gave individuals a tax credit for payment of private school tuition. It cost the state $75 million per year in lost tax revenue. The new bill would cap the maximum credit cost to the state at $50 million and tweak a few other aspects of the program. House Bill 4194 was introduced and sent to committee but never referred back out. There is some hope among supporters that it will be brought out of the committee during this fall's veto session. Would you vote yes on House Bill 4194 if brought to the floor of the House? And we'll start with Nick.
Could you repeat the question again? I'm sorry.
The question, would you vote yes on House Bill 4194 if brought to the floor of the House?
And then what was 4194? I just want to make sure I get the whole question.
House Bill 4194.
What was the details for the...
Okay, I'll just begin from the beginning again. House Bill 4194, introduced in the House this past session, seeking to extend the Invest in Kids Education Tax Credit Scholarship Program, which ended on December 31st of 2023. The Invest in Kids Education Tax Credit gave individuals a tax credit for payment of private school tuition. It cost the state $75 million per year in lost tax revenue. The new bill would cap the maximum credit cost to the state at $50 million and tweaked a few other aspects of the program. House Bill 4194 was introduced and sent to committee, but never referred back out. There is some hope among supporters that it will be brought out of committee during the fall veto session. Would you vote yes on House Bill 4194 if brought to the floor of the House?
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So I am not too familiar with House Bill 4194, but one of the things that I would do if I'm elected is I would go through the bill and read it to make sure it would be good for the district. So I would have to do more research on that bill to make sure I have all the facts before I would vote yes or no on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Amy?
Thank you, Doug. Invest in Kids program has been one of the top issues of the last year or so, as that program was scheduled to sunset, and indeed the legislature allowed it to sunset. When the bill or the act sunsetted, thousands of children from low-income families, perhaps in the inner city Chicago, that are their neighborhood school may be a failing school that their parents didn't want them to be at, they lost their scholarship to attend the school that was working for them. We have had in Springfield hundreds of families over the last year come to Springfield begging to keep this program in place. That bill in particular was an attempt at a compromise to say maybe we could reduce the credit a little bit, make sure that it fits within the state budget, and maybe we could answer some of the concerns. Some of the concerns were, well, you're really not giving this to low-income kids. So that's kind of what that bill was about, an attempt to make sure that, that the concept of the program was being used for what it was intended for. I believe that if children and families, especially from low-income families, are in a neighborhood where their school is not serving them well and where they don't feel safe, they should have the opportunity, like families in other areas have, to choose a different school for them. So I guess the answer is yes, I would vote to renew it. It has been a very difficult topic to face these families and say, the legislature has decided not to put this on the floor for a vote. I advocated for this to come to the floor for a vote. Thank you.
Thank you both. Question number 3, and Amy Elik will be the first to answer this one. The 2025 Illinois budget passed in May totals over $53 billion and includes increases in taxes on sports betting, video gaming, and hotels, while eliminating the 1% state sales tax on groceries starting in 2026. Representative Elik voted against the budget, citing concerns about efficiency in state agencies. Between years 2000 and 2020, spending on higher education already decreased by 52%, healthcare by 22%, human services by 28%, and public safety by 20.7%. If you were required to make cuts to the budget, what specific areas would you prioritize for reduction? Additionally, how do you view funding levels for education, mental health services, and support for the homeless population?
Thank you. So in the state of Illinois, well, I mentioned before I'm on the budget team for my caucus and a certified public accountant. So as you can imagine, I pay close attention to the financial matters of the state. And indeed, that's what part of the reason that I ran for office 4 years ago. That was part of my reason for running. And so we don't have a revenue problem in Illinois. We have a spending problem. We have more revenue than we've ever had, and the revenue is not growing as fast as our expenditures are growing. And so I will tell you, fiscal year 2026, both Democrats and Republicans have said that's going to be a difficult budget year because of that trajectory of spending versus revenue. So what would I cut? I think I mentioned in my opening, I voted against part of what was in the budget, $1 billion to go towards immigrant housing, health care. Those things are important, but we have to focus on our people in Illinois. And really, because we're spending money on things like that, we are shortchanging schools. We are shortchanging people that work with developmentally disabled youth and adults in Illinois. We're shortchanging some other really important people that are our most vulnerable. And so I strongly believe that that's the first place to cut. But I'll also tell you, I sit on 2 different appropriations committees. One is General Services, which sees a whole host of different agencies, anything from IDNR to the Liquor Control Board. We have hearing after hearing with many, many different state agencies. And I also sit on the K-12 Appropriations Committee for education spending. And we also hear requests, especially related to education, that we need more money in the system. And I do believe that. We have the evidence-based funding formula. I am a legislator that believes we should put more money into that, and I have a lot of agreement with that, so I'm not sure how we're not putting more money into education. But education in Illinois, we are teachers, principals, staff at schools are really dealing with so many more things than maybe they did 30 years ago. And they need our support. They're asking for our support. They're telling us what they need, and I think we should listen to them. And part of what I think that they would be using that money for is, additional school counselors, additional school psychiatrists, some of the things that teachers are doing as part of their work, and they would probably appreciate the assistance and support with those kinds of things. So hopefully I answered both parts of the question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nick?
Could you repeat the question?
Yes.
Thank you.
The 2025 Illinois budget passed in May totals over $53 billion and includes increases in taxes on sports betting, video gaming, and hotels, while eliminating the 1% state sales tax on groceries starting in 2026. Representative Elik voted against the budget, citing concerns about efficiency in state agencies. Between the years 2000 and 2020, spending on higher education already decreased by 52%, healthcare by 22%, human services by 28%, and public safety by 20.7%. If you were required to make cuts to the budget, what specific areas would you prioritize for reduction? Additionally, how do you view funding levels for education, mental health services, and support for the homeless population?
All right, thank you. That's a great question. So Illinois has had a balanced budget for the last few years. One of the things that I think I would have to look at when I'm looking at the budget to cut, I would have to see if there's any wasteful spending. I know Amy Elik mentioned the funding for illegal immigrants, but I would look at wasteful spending like pork barrel spending. The United States Congress does this as well, where there's overblown projects that don't need to take place. So I would look at wasteful spending in the budget, and then I also think we need more in the budget for education, more for security in our schools. I think teachers are struggling right now with school supplies. They have to buy their own, school supplies. I think we need to raise the salaries for teachers as well, so I would advocate for that as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, question number 4, and this is a long one, so I'll do my best to get through it without stumbling. And Nick, you'll be the first to respond. As of 2024, the estimated shortfall in Illinois' pension system is projected to be around $140 billion. The figure reflects the gap between the state's pension liabilities and its assets, indicating significant funding challenges. The shortfall is a result of various factors, including underfunding in previous years. Over the previous 55 years, we've had a Republican governor for 34 of those years and a Democratic governor for 21. So both parties sharing the blame for kicking the can down the road. Investment performance and increasing liabilities due to an aging population. Addressing this issue is critical for the state's long-term financial health and sustainability. The Illinois pension significantly affects the state's budget and future financial stability. The obligations that have already come due cannot be changed, nor can the terms of a pension of a person who has already been hired or already retired pursuant to the Illinois Constitution. The legislature made changes to the pension law for people hired more recently, which many believe have led in part to difficulties hiring teachers and other professional state employees due to the more stringent retirement requirements. Given these complicated issues, what strategies do you believe should be implemented to address this pension shortfall, and how do you balance the needs of the current retirees with the financial realities facing the state?
Great question. So I had the pleasure of attending the Tier 2 Town Hall a couple weeks ago in Fairview Heights, and I had the opportunity to listen to a couple of people that are affected by this issue with Tier 1 and Tier 2. So the state, Republicans and Democrats, passed the buck on this. I think that people that are in Tier 2 right now face many challenges because whenever they retire, they're going to have less money coming monthly. They don't have as great of benefits as other people in Tier 1, and they're doing the same kinds of work. So I think this is a very big issue, and I think that we need to figure out how we can address the concerns of people that are in Tier 1 and Tier 2. So I would look at restructuring the pension program and trying to figure out how we can make it fair for people that are in the Tier 2 group, so that they, whenever they retire, they're going to have, they're going to be able to live comfortably whenever they're retired from their jobs. Thank you.
Amy?
Thank you. Yes, the pension debt in Illinois is staggering, and it is, you're right, the result of years of shortfalls and missed payments and things like that. The first thing is we should be putting in the actuarial required contribution. We have a statutorily required contribution, but we also have an actuarially required contribution. So I think we should be putting more money in. Over the last couple of years, there's been some small extra chunks put in besides the statutorily required payment, and I think that's a good first start to actually catch up on what is supposed to be going into the funds. So the issue with Tier 2, Tier 1 and Tier 2, right? We're a border state here where just across the river, you could be a teacher in Missouri where you would retire many years earlier. And, that's an easy drive for people, and it's an easy decision to make to leave Illinois to find a different opportunity, especially when it comes to retirement. So I think we are all understanding that people are making those decisions all the time, and that we are missing out on good teachers and good police officers and good firefighters and other public sector workers. So there is some tweaks that I think need to be done to the system immediately to meet some safe harbor rules. And I think that we are, this is not a guarantee, but here's what I think is going to happen. Take it for what it's worth. I think that we're probably in the General Assembly, either during veto session or lame duck session, going to address some of the some minor issues, but there are still some really big issues related to Tier 2. One thing that I pointed out to people is that, let's just say we did away with Tier 2 and rolled everybody into Tier 1. The financial hit on our liability for pensions would be great. And the governor thus far has said it's very important for him to maintain the credit ratings that he's been able to get and to try to keep our credit ratings and to satisfy those rating agencies so that we don't go back down to the bottom where we pretty much almost are anyway. But he doesn't want to go backwards in our credit rating history. And so I look forward to having the governor's office, Republicans and Democrats come together, hopefully in veto session, and figure this out and let's all get in a room and figure it out. We have great people on both sides of the aisle that actually all year long have so far been doing some pension committee hearings in both the House and the Senate. And so I know that we could figure something out to make it worthwhile, but I do know we have to be careful because I don't think the governor wants to go backwards on the credit rating issue. So I think that's my answer.
All right, thank you both. Question number 5. Given Illinois' ambitious clean energy targets under the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act mandating the closure of coal and natural gas power plants, which targets seem important in light of the impact of global warming evidenced by the widespread devastation of Hurricane Helene? What specific plans do you support to ensure a stable and reliable electricity supply for the 111th District, particularly as we face potential electricity shortages? How will you address the challenges of transitioning to renewable energy while maintaining affordability and preventing disruptions? Amy Elik, you're first.
Thank you. I mentioned in my opening that I've been laser focused on trying to make Illinois more affordable, and unfortunately everyone has seen their utility bills skyrocket. Some of that is going to be the result of policies that have been put into place in Illinois, which have dictated mandates on closing coal-fired power plants before we're truly ready to take on the full extent of solar and wind and other sources, including nuclear. So we're now in a position where the outlook is that we're not going to be able to have that reliable energy that we need, plus the demand for energy is growing. So I really think we have to go back and adjust these arbitrary mandates of closing dates and try to make sure that we're doing an all of the above approach for energy. That is, my goal is to make sure that the capacity is there so that people are not having, even more skyrocketing utility bills because we are not able to meet the needs of electricity. I'll also mention too, the state of Illinois is really working hard to attract data centers and manufacturing and entities that require a lot of power. And we have to have a stable and reliable supply because businesses won't come here because that's one of their first questions that they ask is what's my power situation and how much can you supply to me on a given site. And so we have to do an all of the above approach, and I think that we need some tweaks to get to that point.
All right, Nick, your turn.
Yep, that's a great question. So the rising cost of energy is concerning for me as well. One of the things that I would like to see is more solar power, solar energy, solar panels on homes, and I think that we need to have more incentives for residents to have those solar panels implemented on their homes because that would decrease the prices that they're paying by Ameren. And then I know another thing that we need to make sure that coal jobs are not going to go away in this area. Steel companies as well. We need to make sure that we continue to fund those jobs as well. But no, I would definitely say that solar energy is one of the best options to combat the rising costs of energy bills. Thank you.
All right, thank you both. Question number 6, and Nick, you'll go first on this one. Illinois has not passed a major infrastructure package since 2009 to fund critical needs such as roads, bridges, schools, and broadband expansion. Do you support passing a new infrastructure or capital bill to address these needs? And if so, how would you propose funding these projects while balancing the state's fiscal responsibilities?
So that's a great question. Yes, I think it's about time that we have a new infrastructure bill, especially in this district. There is a lot of streets and sidewalks, bridges that are decaying. One of the biggest projects I think that we need that money for is Route 11. And then also, just living in the district for so long, I see the amount of decaying roads and bridges and streets. So I definitely think it's about time that we have money for those infrastructure projects. And one of the things that I would like to do if I'm elected is communicate with the different city leaders to figure out what infrastructure projects that they think are important. And so I would make sure to talk to them and make sure that those are the top priorities whenever the infrastructure bill is passed. Thank you.
Amy, your turn.
Thank you. You might remember a few years ago that the Illinois General Assembly passed a gas tax. And I wanted to bring that up because a major capital investment bill will likely come with another tax increase in order to fund it. And I'm not ready to raise our taxes at this time. I don't feel that I mentioned before, we don't have a revenue problem, we have a spending problem. But I also wanted to mention, you are seeing some investment from that gas tax and with other funding. I look at the IDOT multi-year plan for our district quite often and look to see the progress that we're making. And you may not know, but just in and around Granite City, IDOT is investing over $1 billion with a B, dollars into bridges and roads, including the Route 3 corridor. We have a new Mississippi River Bridge going on now that will be open, I guess, soon, next year maybe. You'll maybe got caught in traffic along US 67 in the last couple weeks that's being completely ground down and repaved. We've had Route 3 along here repaved as well. So those are state projects that are being done right here in the 111th district, and I couldn't be more thrilled to see that investment going in. One thing that kind of has loosely been talked about as related to capital is our schools have a lot of deferred maintenance, including our colleges and universities, and I think that maybe there could be some small talk about that in the future, about how we can get some of these schools some building projects. But again, I wouldn't want to raise taxes to do that at this time. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you both very much. And that gets us to the end of our prepared questions. Now it's time for questions from the audience. All right, so, and we'll continue in the same rotation, one after the other. First question, one of the largest problems in Illinois is our pension crisis. How will you fight for Madison County and Springfield to pay down our debts, but see individuals get what they were promised? And I think that goes along the line of one of our previous questions, but I'll let you two have at it.
Sure. I'm sorry. I'm first, right? On this one? Okay, thanks. I think we did talk about that briefly, but I think it is, in case I didn't say it before, I want to make sure that people understand a pension promise is something that has to be kept. And so if you are working for the state of Illinois or you are retired from the state of Illinois, that's a promise that absolutely has to be kept. So I think what we talked about before, putting in additional money to meet the actuarially required contribution and taking a look at tweaking Tier 2 and determining where we can come together and find agreement.
All right, thank you. Nick?
Yeah, so kind of like what I said earlier, we definitely need to take steps to improve the Tier 2 pension. We need to make sure it's adequate for the people that are going to be retiring. We need to make sure that they're going to be getting the money that they deserve, that they earned. I also think it's very important that, that they get the same amount of money when they retire that people in Tier 1 get, because they're doing the same type of job. So.
All right, thank you. And I forgot to mention that during this part of the question and answer session that the candidates are limited to 2 minutes to respond. Nick, you'll go first on this next one. Perhaps the largest responsibility of the Illinois legislature is passing a budget every year. What are your qualifications in budgets, and how do we make sure the Metro East is not forgotten?
That's a great question. So being on the Board of Trustees at Southwestern Illinois Community College, we have to pass an annual budget every single year. So I think I'm qualified to look at the budget and things like that because of my experience on the board, being able to look at teachers' salaries in the budget.
Able to advocate for projects. The budget process actually, while it comes together in the final day of session each year, usually in the middle of the night while everyone is sleeping, there's actually a process that starts much earlier than that. In fact, the summer before, as the agencies are trying to determine their budgets. And that's a great time to be an advocate for your district and to make requests or start questioning agencies about how their budget is going to include money for the Metro East, and I've been able to do that the last 4 years.
All right. Our next question. The current Illinois child care subsidy requires TANF, the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, enrollment and can still have a copay of $35 to $200 per month, or $25 to $200 per month. Trying to get through this, I'm sorry. Do you propose more parents, propose more parents should be eligible? Sorry for stumbling through that one.
That's okay. I guess I can't speak to the specific eligibility requirements because I don't know them offhand and I don't want to misspeak on that. But what I will say is over the past 4 years, I've worked with a nice collaboration of people who are interested in making sure that childcare is accessible and affordable, including working with the Illinois Manufacturers Association. And I proposed a bill to allow employers to have on-site childcare. And some do now, but we want to make it easier for them to do that and make sure that they can provide high quality childcare right there on site, especially when it comes to shift workers whose hours aren't 9 to 5. And so I think it's really important that we focus our efforts on making sure that our childcare centers that we have here are high quality and are supported, and the programs from the state pay them fairly so that they can pay their workers fairly. I think that's really important in bringing people into the child care workforce, which many people want to do, but it's hard to make a living wage sometimes. So those types of things will increase the supply of child care centers in Illinois. We have child care deserts in many areas, and parents often decide, I'm going to have to leave the workforce to take care of my kids instead of finding, because I can't find a facility that will help and that I feel comfortable with. So those are things that I've worked on, and I think that is something employers and workers alike think is very important.
Thank you. And Nick?
Thank you. That's a great question. So child care is one of the highest payments that a family makes every month. So I definitely think that we should expand to allow more families to be on that program, but I also think that we should give more money to the child care facilities to make sure that they are adequate, they have all the stuff that they need, and that they do pay their employees a living wage as well. But a lot of people are struggling right now, and like I said, the cost of child care is very, very high. In some cases, it costs just as much to take your kid to a facility as the rent that you pay or the mortgage that you have. And I do not feel that's right. So I would definitely support expanding that program to more families. Thank you.
All right, our next question, and Nick, you'll start on this one. How do you view the migrant crisis in Illinois, and what would you do to address it in Illinois?
Thank you. I think it is an issue. You know, I do think that we need to have more border security. We need to make sure that they're paid a fair wage as well. You know, we do have a crisis going on in our country. I think people need to come here legally. I think there needs to be a pathway to citizenship. I don't think we should deport, you know, people that are here illegal. I think that's unrealistic. You know, I think the figures are 11 million people nationwide, but I would be in favor of supporting a pathway to citizenship and also expanding on border security to make sure that, you know, people are being screened that come to our country. So, thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Amy?
Thank you. Immigration policies are generally the federal government's decision and process, but we here in Illinois are certainly feeling the effects of their lack of action to have a secure border. Several years ago, Illinois enacted the sanctuary state status. I've recently co-sponsored legislation to end that because it is there's bipartisan support to stop spending as much money as we do in Illinois on the migrants that we have invited here when we were ill-equipped to take care of their needs. And so I think I mentioned earlier I voted against putting another $1 billion into migrant funding. Our schools are definitely having problems because they don't have the interpreters and they don't have the resources there. And so we were ill-equipped to do this. We did it anyway, and now we're paying the price for that. So I think, again, with the federal government as a partner in trying to determine what the best policy is, we need to make sure that in Illinois we are taking care of our Illinoisans, and that's where I think most people, not everyone, but I think it's very popular opinion that we need to take care of Illinoisans first. The federal government needs to make it easier to come here legally than it is to come here illegally. Thank you.
We have a few more questions from the audience, and the next one is, and Amy, you'll start this one. Do you believe in stricter laws regarding ghost guns, and should serial numbers be required on all?
So those things are required in Illinois already. I'm a pro-Second Amendment legislator, and I vote my district on this. We have a rich history in the 111th district of hunting and shooting sports, and generations of family have enjoyed that, and thousands of people have made their careers at Olin Winchester Ammunition Plant in East Alton. And so when I am voting on issues in Springfield related to this, I vote my district on that. Thank you.
Nick, your turn.
That's a great question. So I am also pro-Second Amendment. I do think that that is a right in the Constitution, but I also think that ghost guns should be banned, and the law that was passed a few years ago to restrict the manufacturing of parts in your home, homemade guns, I would have voted against that as well, because you know, we need to make sure that we are protecting our brave first responders, police officers, and firefighters, protecting our schools as well. So, yeah, I definitely would be opposed to ghost guns. Thank you.
Our next question. This year, a law passed in the middle of the election year to not allow candidates to be placed on the ballot through seating. Do you support changing the rules in the middle of an election cycle? Nick?
So are you talking about the, can you repeat that question, please?
This year, a law passed in the middle of the election cycle to not allow candidates to be seated on the ballot. Do you support changing the rules in the middle of an election cycle?
So I am opposed to that bill that was passed. I do think that people should be seated in an election year, and I think it was bad politics and bad for the state to pass something like that. So I'm opposed to that. I think we should allow people to be seated on the ballot, especially during middle of an election. Thank you.
Amy?
I think you're talking about Senate Bill 2412, if I have the number right.
I don't have the number, but it sounds right.
It is the bill that ended, maybe for some quick background, it ended the slating of candidates only for the General Assembly, the Illinois House and the Illinois Senate, during the middle of the election cycle when candidates were already out getting their petitions to get slated to the ballot. This happened in less than 24 hours in Springfield, right around May 1st. We got wind of this from another legislator, a Democrat, who told the Republicans, you guys are going to have a really bad day today. And so, sure enough, a couple hours later, a bill was dropped in committee at the last minute, which did a number of things, including putting those advisory referendums on the ballot, but it also ended this slating process, which has been in place for decades in Illinois. The bill was pushed through, the Senate signed it the next day, or the Senate passed it the next day, and the governor signed it right away. It was a blatant attempt to limit ballot access for the Republican Party, who had a few people that were looking to get slated when no one ran in the primary. You know it's bad if you say that this is an ethics bill in Illinois. However, you only make it applicable to the races that matter to you and not to all races. So, for example, county board races weren't affected by this, and sure enough, soon after, Madison County Democrats slated some people for office after that, but yet they said this is an ethics bill. So this is just an example of how bad things can happen very quickly in Springfield. Maybe just as a quick follow-up, the law was taken to court, and it ended up in the Supreme Court, who kind of punted, but basically the law, that portion of the law was nullified and is not in process. It's not in progress, and people did get ballot access. Don't know what will happen next time. It will probably depend on the party in power, and if they want to slate somebody, they'll change the law again. So that was really a blatant and disgusting use of power to end ballot access. So thank you.
All right, it is time for our final question of the night, submitted by the audience. What plan do you have for your first 60 days in office, and how do you plan to implement it? And Amy, it's your turn.
So I'm already collecting bill ideas from constituents, and the best ideas truly come from constituents. So I'll take those ideas in Springfield, turn them into a bill format if that is what is necessary to solve problems that people have brought to me, and then we'll get them through the committee process. I work very, very hard in Springfield by collaborating with both sides of the aisle with my colleagues that are experts in various different subject matter to get bills through. So that's, I guess, maybe a generic way of saying I'm going to work very hard on the issues that matter to you that you all have brought to me, and that's very important to me. So that's 60 days, but also throughout the rest of the legislative calendar that goes until the end of May. But I would also say what's really important to me is something I mentioned in opening, is providing excellent customer service in our district office so that when a problem comes up in your life and you don't know where to turn, we want to be there for you. And I think that's one of the most important things we can do. And so that's not just first 60 days, that's going to be always. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Nick, your turn.
Thank you. So one of the things that I would do first is I would schedule meetings with all of the city leaders in each of the municipalities in the district to come up with their top priorities for the year, to see what projects they need done. I mentioned, infrastructure is a really big issue in this area, so I would talk to them about seeing if there's any road projects that need to be taken care of. Another thing that I would push for, I mentioned it in my opening remarks, is I think we need more trade classes in high schools. So one of my top priorities is making sure that high schools offer trade classes across the state. Thank you.
Thank you. And we had one late arrival on the question card. So Nick, you'll go first on what I believe now is the final question. Oh, we have a couple more? All right. Well, we'll start with this one. Do you have a plan to curb gun violence and access to guns in the youth population? Will you consider fining all gun designers, manufacturers, sales reps, NRA, etc., to hold them accountable for each person killed or injured by their product? Nick?
That's a great question. I think it's very difficult to find all the gun manufacturers and things like that are on the streets. But I mean, another thing that we need to think about is, we need to have stricter gun laws in this area. We need to make sure that, people with a history of violence aren't allowed to get guns. We need to make sure that people that are on the no-fly list can't get guns. I think that's a huge problem. People that have a long arrest record, violent arrest record, I do not think should have the ability to get firearms. So that would be what I would say to that question. Thank you.
Amy?
We need serious investment in mental health resources, emergency mental health services, and substance abuse services for people that are in desperate need of those services. So that's one area that is a true investment in violence prevention and in families. There are violence prevention programs throughout the state of Illinois, but most of them go to the Chicagoland area. But we know that there are many other areas of Illinois where there is gun violence. And so we have to be very active and proactive in bringing those violence prevention programs here to every community. I also would mention that our police need the resources to, let me back up. There are over 80,000 people in Illinois whose FOID cards have been revoked because they've gone through a court process and been determined to be dangerous or mentally ill and should not have a firearm. And the police have said we need more resources to help get the hands out of people that are not supposed to have them. So that is something that I would absolutely advocate for more money for our police. They're telling us what they need. Let's try to give it to them.
Thank you. All right, looks like I have two more questions here. Amy, you'll be up first. Do you have a plan to advocate and support mental health for troubled elementary, middle, and high school age children?
When I spoke earlier about needing more money in the education system, I think that this is something where an investment in our schools could go. And I think I mentioned additional counselors and additional school psychologists, things that can be put into place right in the school district and in the school buildings themselves. How great would it be if a family whose parents work all day and can't take off work to take their child to a therapist appointment, the therapist could go into schools? We do have that in some local schools, but we need to expand programs like that. And I'm sorry, I forgot the rest of the question. What was the rest?
I'll just read it to you in entirety.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Do you have a plan to advocate and support mental health?
Thank you.
Oh, you got it?
Okay, I got it. Thank you. I just needed that little reminder there. So, yeah, so I think that's one area that I wanted to mention was education. But also we have an important facility right here in Alton, our Alton Mental Health Center, that takes care of people that have been adjudicated, mentally ill by reason of, or guilty by reason of insanity. There are forensic services available at Alton Mental Health Center. I think that campus could be used for additional services for people with mental health issues.
All right, Nick, your turn.
Thank you. That's a great question. Mental health is very dear to my heart. My mom was a psychiatric nurse for 25 years, and she helped with adolescents that were suffering from mental health. My grandma was a guidance counselor in Collinsville. So I think the top priority is to make sure that each school has guidance has counselors, has therapists for the kids to go and talk to. I do think it's important. You know, somebody that grew up with a disability, there were times when I didn't think that anyone was listening to me, and it would have helped to have somebody in the school, you know, a counselor that I could talk to or a therapist I could talk to explain what was going on with bullying and, you know, my poor grades. It would have helped me tremendously. So, yeah, mental health is very, very dear to my heart. So, a terrific question. Thank you.
All right, Nick, you'll go first on this one. There is a lack of adult daycare facilities in Alton, and we currently have to travel to Edwardsville and Collinsville. What can you do to support adult daycare in the Alton community?
Thank you. That's a great question. So one of the things that I have talked about before is having better communication with our elected officials. I think it's important that we talk to them to see where there's a facility in Alton that could house adult daycares. And I think not just in Alton, but across the district, we need more facilities for adult daycares as well. I think it's a very important issue. My uncle has a mental disability, and you know, I think it would be great if there was a facility close to him that he would be able to go to and be able to interact with people and things like that. So, thank you.
Amy, your turn.
I think that's a great question, whoever asked that question. And adult daycare is such an important part of having the ability to keep loved ones in their homes longer. And I think that's an excellent question. So yes, I'm aware that we don't have necessarily those services in Alton, and people have to travel, and either you drive your loved one yourself or there's perhaps transportation available. But we have a wonderful resource here in Alton, Senior Services Plus, that I think could, I'm calling you out, Emily, sorry. But I think that we have such a great resource that we could definitely work on that. And you know, we have many different assisted living facilities that are private pay, and we have supportive living facilities. And I think we could probably expand some adult daycare to those existing facilities. And I think that would be definitely a way to make sure that we're taking care of our loved ones. Thank you.
And with that, I don't have any more cards in my hand. So I would like to take this moment to thank everybody in the audience for being here tonight, everybody watching on RiverBender or listening on WBGZ Radio for your attention tonight. I especially want to thank our two members of the table up here, Amy Elik, the incumbent, and challenger Nick Raftopolous, for not only your time tonight, but your desire to serve the people of Illinois. So with that being said, don't forget that early voting is going on right now. You can do it at many different locations, and that'll be starting in about a week. Please use your voice this election season. And with that, tonight's candidate forum is done. Thank you very much.